Welcome to season 2 of the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. Today's episode is brought to you by Greenup Wealth, where those guys and gals over there at Greenup Wealth Management will help you set yourself up for your retirement years. So while they're taking care of you financially, I am here trying to educate you so that you can physically enjoy those golden years. Speaking of physically enjoy yourself and enjoy the golden years, I'm not calling you old or anything, but welcome to the show, Mr. Brett Wood.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Man, I'm super sad. To have you on. Coaching to me has been, it's been awesome. I love to do it. Transition a few years ago from, maybe a path in my career where I was going to be doing less coaching and more management of people. And, I chose the coaching path for a lot of reasons. And, to see you and your physical change, and I would say also mental change, to a degree, but seeing the physical change and kind of the light bulb, for lack of better terms, of the nutrition component, right? Because you train hard, you've always trained hard, but just putting together the nutrition and seeing the change. And now there's the simple fact that, you're out here helping others, is to me, like, it's exciting for me. It makes me feel good. It makes me like, okay, I'm in a good spot doing the right thing, because, actions like yourself, where you're going out and helping others, it's that branching out of the tree, for lack of better, terms.
Sure.
But hey, I want to get started with, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your history as far as, serving this country, just kind of a background. And then I kind of want to start our story out, talking about, us getting together on the first Phorm app and kind of that first initial journey, going with, once again, from my perspective, you trained hard. It was just dialing that nutrition in. But let's start with a little bit of background information.
Yeah. So, as you said, my name's Brett. I was born in Mississippi, but grew up my whole life in Houston. And, I played baseball my whole life. I played baseball all the way through college, so athletics, physical activity, those things were always a huge aspect of my life. And after college, I joined the military, where, everyone thinks I was in the Air Force, so everyone, of course, calls it the Chair Force. But, I was security forces, were outside of special forces, the only ground troops. And so, we were physically active all the time. I worked in a training department there where, we were doing hikes and we were rucking and we were, doing all the combat skills. And so, even in that side of my life, I was very physically active. That's where I probably really got into the training, because we always lifted and worked out with sports. But I don't know that I ever really had someone who taught me the right way to do it. You just did it because that's what you're supposed to do. And in the military, there's a lot of people who work out all the time. And so actually seeing people putting on size, me working out, not seeing improvements, but getting stronger, that's where I really started to try to learn and educate and, get better on that front.
Well, let me pause you right there, because I would argue it, and it'll be a question that comes with this, but, I would argue it was because of what unit you were in, that it was the culture that people worked out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
especially
Because
being in that training department. We're PTing people. If you can't keep up with the people you're working out, that's not a good sign. And so, they were hard at the gym.
yeah, because I look at, like, my perspective of what was the Army and my experience before, direct commissioning, into the Guard was, I thought everyone was the tip of the spear of the special forces. Like, that was my thought process, because that's who I was around. At the time, CrossFit Thunder, which is now Thunder Athletics in Huntington, West Virginia, it's a gym that I founded and owned, and we had a lot of the 219th guys that would come in there and train. So that was my small, like, culture that I was around, and I thought, oh, this is how they all are, right? But as you can attest to, and a lot of individuals that we've worked with, like, not every unit inside the military do you get strength and conditioning education, right? So you were saying, yes, you were around it, but it was because the unit was around it, and you just were, once again, that the culture of, okay, I've got to keep up, I've got to be the best, was what was around there. It wasn't necessarily, okay, here's the structured training of what you're going to do.
It's funny because I probably never even really thought about that until you just said it. And I'm looking back, and you're right. I mean, we had tons of people in my career field who didn't work out, who weren't in great shape. But the people that I was surrounded by, I mean, it was a major aspect of their life, and it was contagious.
100%. And I think that's, that's a lot of times like in nutrition, in wellness in general, right? We kind of, I don't want to say filter, but we lean to, what is that culture that is around us, right? And I think that's the way a lot of us, begin our wellness journey inside nutrition is we eat like, our parents ate, right? Or we eat like the people that surround us because that's what we've learned, right? And I would,
Absolutely.
all joking from West Virginia, we used to say, thank God for Mississippi because you guys kept us off the #1 chart when it comes to obesity and some of these health problems over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. I had that conversation with somebody the other day. You're talking about, you learn from your parents, and they messaged me. They're like, I don't know how you do all the things that you do. And I was like, well, why do you want to do it? And their whole motivation was like, well, I want to look like I used to look. And I was like, I got 3 kids. I've got a wife. I have family who's battled sickness. Like, no, my kids are watching me. I don't want my kids to have those experiences. I want to set the example for them. And, I want to live a life that one they'd be proud of, but two that they want to follow after me as well. So that's a huge piece of it.
100%. Yeah, and you kind of hit on there, through wife. It was two or three kids.
3 kids
Three
now. We've
kids.
got a 3-month-year-old, so just had our third.
Listen, I thought that I was like your mentor or something that like I'm teaching you what not to do, not what to do,
Yeah, it's
right?
funny because I mean I'm trying to think back when we started this journey together. I think I had one.
Yeah, that's what
And
and you're like, oh, Jeremy's okay. He's making it over there. He had his third a little bit older. How old are you now, Brett?
I'm 36, so I'll be
Okay.
37 this year.
All right, so not as old as I was when I had the third. So, but maybe you guys are planning on another one. Maybe you're just planning on #4. When you're in your 40s.
You have one and you don't know how you keep up with it, and then you have two and you don't know how you do that, and that's kind of how we're feeling with three right now.
Yeah,
So I don't think there's any more
I-
planned in
I've
the future.
well, I've heard it gets easier after three, but I was not going to wait around to try to figure that out.
Everyone tells me that. They say once you're outnumbered and you figure that out, after that it doesn't matter. 4, 5, 6, 7, who cares? I was like, yeah, well, I'll let you hold on to that.
And how many years were you in the Air Force?
I just did 4.
4 years. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And then you circling back around, faith and religion is a big part of your life too, right? And I just want to, kind of touch on that a little bit because, and I don't know yet for the listeners, we're either going to run this as a really long episode or we might break it into two. I've been reading a lot of the FM-22 from the Army's doctrine on H2F, which is our, wellness program. And I'm going to read the spiritual readiness chapter, and Brett's going to kind of give his, input from that, right? So I think it's good to have you on for that. But let's talk just a little bit of history there. What do you want to do with what you're doing inside of religion and faith?
Yeah, sure. So my passion is discipleship. I believe going to church, there's a lot of people who, and it's just like health and fitness. How many people work out? How many people try to eat right, but they just don't know. And that's okay because I was in the same boat. I worked out. I thought I was eating good. Then you had me start tracking, and I was like I'm nowhere close to where I need to be. And like I didn't junk on or snack on junk foods or anything like that, but I was nowhere close. They just don't know. And I think that happens a lot of times, within religion as well. Say you go to church, it's kind of like Googling the internet, for nutrition advice or lifting advice. You get all these puzzle pieces, but nobody ever puts the puzzle pieces together for you to see the full picture. And so, as I started on this journey and wanted to really help other people, as you know, coaching is so much more than writing a workout program and giving some macros. I mean, it's daily habits, it's lifestyle, it's, being the best version of yourself. And so I looked at that piece and I was like, man, why couldn't that piece have a discipleship twist to it to where I can help, educate people about, religion, help them better understand, if they're Christians, better understand their Bible, what they're reading, the context of what they're reading, so that they don't just read and, they're confused, but they can actually apply it to their lives and lead a better life.
And I think it's so powerful. And I still, always tell people like, I know what my lane is. I know where I'm good and where my education is, and with you know spirits or my spiritual readiness, and I'm 40 some years old, and it's something that, like, I still, when I read, I don't understand it, right? And I think that's bad sometimes, because then we are so good at kind of talking ourselves like into things or justifying things. So I could read something and think I understand it and twist it the way I want to, and be like, okay, this is what it means. So this is how I'm going to act, and this is how I'm going to live. When I totally just, I don't want to say made it up, but I made up how I should live based on my understanding. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's something I'm, as I'm trying to grow, as a Christian, and I'm working on, is like truly understanding, what is the word, and the word should guide me, not necessarily what I think the word is and what I want to be guided by, so.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to realize we come to everything with our own lens, right? That's based on our life experiences, that based on what we were surrounded by. And again, we do that in every aspect of life, not just religion. But when you look at, again, like say the Bible, for example, it's not written in chronological order, even though it tells a story, so it kind of seems like there's random pieces here and there, but we read it through our understanding and our lens, but it's written to a completely different culture, to a completely different people group. And so you really have to kind of start trying to understand the context of who it's written to, and have them understand, like what would they have gotten from this, and how do I apply those principles to my life?
And I don't think until college, I remember my his best friend at my wedding, he ended up buying me and still the Bible I read to today, but it was a teaching Bible. So it had, your of course your scripture, but then, at the bottom of the page, it had like explanation. And that was like the first time that I was like, oh, this is kind of, this is making sense based on the explanation. So I can go out, and that's what that's supposed to mean. Right. And I can't tell you, man, I would say that if I had to put a percentage on it, 75% of the time I was wrong. And maybe that was just because I was in my 20s.
Sure.
The lens of me in my 20s is totally different than the lens of me, in my 40s now. But I think you're 100% correct in that of life. We all come to situations, whether it's a wellness journey or whether it's our spiritual journey, with certain lenses and certain thoughts. And, this is something I see people really sometimes struggle with, especially in their wellness journey, is that giving up, like, it is okay to lean on other people and take some information for other people. Right. Because I feel like, people will come in, and they'll be stuck on this one idea, or maybe something they've done before. And there's this emotional attachment to a workout program or to a nutritional approach that they want to stay with. And they're very
Sure.
reluctant to actually just, like, for example, man, I'm thinking maybe it's Carrie Underwood song. I could totally butcher this, but, like, Lord, take the wheel. Like, some people need to do that in the wellness journey, where they just need to, hey, tell me what to do, Jeremy. Tell me my exact numbers. I need help in this aspect.
Absolutely. I had a conversation the last 2 nights at work on a guy who's talking about, signing up. And and again, there's nothing wrong with this. You would say the same thing. He is like hung on keto
Yeah.
because he's had people who he's known who've seen results. And so like he's trying to understand all the keto stuff. And I'm just trying to explain to him, like, if that's what you want to do, that's great. I mean, we can work through that process together, and I'll help you understand what that looks like. But he's hung up on it because of people that he's experienced, people that he's seen, the things that he's read. And his understanding is, well, if I don't eat carbs and my body burns fat, then I'm burning body fat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the same fat, and I'm like, no, not quite. But yeah, I mean, everything, like you said, you can do that with workouts. Well, I knew a guy in the military who was jacked, and this is the workout that he did.
Yeah.
And so like obviously that's the workout to get the results, and it's never that black and white.
No, it's not as much as we want it to be, right? And nothing
Yeah.
wrong with keto, right? I mean, and
Right.
I'll hang my hat on this with 20 years of practice, and I was guilty of this early in my career too. Now it's protein and calories. If we're talking about dropping body fat, create that caloric deficit and then make sure you're hitting optimal protein to maintain your muscle tissue. Those are the two big things. Then the number of times you eat a day, whether you're high carb, you're low carb, none of that really matters. It matters in the sense that we want people to do what they're going to be able to continue to do for a lifetime, right? That's where it matters. But those,
And that's the key that I push is the lifetime. I said, man, are you going to do keto for the rest of your life? And he's like, heck no. And I was like, so what happens when you lose the weight?
100%. Same way, I just had a Perama coach on the other day, and we're talking about the medications, fat loss medications. And, like, I'm not against them. Like, I am okay with any tool. So if someone understands keto and they want to go keto, great. But my role will be, how do I transition them off of that? And the conversation that you just said, hey, are you going to do this forever? Okay, cool. If we're not going to do it forever, we got to have a game plan to when this is over, so that pendulum doesn't swing back and we automatically go back to eating the way we were in the habits.
Right.
Before I get into some questions, man, I do want to talk about, like, man, your love for helping others, in this recent transition. You were I'm going to say 9 to 5, or I know the schedule could change, but you're 9 to 5 banker up until recently. And now you're really taking this, helping others, I'll say their wellness journey, because I know, for you, like, the spiritual wellness is something that, we could say that you're, I hate to use the term specialist, right? But it is your forte. And then now this training and nutrition, you're creating that as your forte. And those are going to be the two biggest things I think you can help people with. But let's talk about a little bit of that change in life in general, as far as changing jobs and where your passion lies and where you're going.
So believe it or not, I mean, dating all the way back to college, I used to coach youth baseball. And I've always had a passion for helping people. And the most rewarding thing about coaching was seeing those kids transition in their lives, and I coached a lot around like that 12 to 14 age where confidence and mentality and some of those things are very moldable at that age. And so like one bad play could lead to a bad season or lead to never playing again. And I've always loved that aspect of helping them. So when I graduated college, that was the first time that I actually bought a personal training program to get licensed and certified. My goal was to get back into coaching. There's an organization in Houston that I worked with, and so I was going to go with them, but I was going to help them add in a speed and agility component, personal training component, and I just didn't have the courage to take the chance on myself, if I'm being honest with you. And so I stepped into the corporate world, got the guaranteed paycheck, started working the 8 to 5, and geez, what is it? 14 years later, like I was still working in the corporate world, wasn't super thrilled with what I was doing. And some major life changes really made me start thinking, like, what do you want to do? Like, and I want to help people. And so what might that look like? And I just kind of threw some thoughts out, kind of put some things in motion, and it snowballed. So I had the opportunity to switch over, and people think that I'm crazy. They're like, wait, what? But I now work at a Walmart distribution center, which is extremely physically demanding, but they had a weekend slot that opened up for me. They weren't even hiring for the slot, but that's what I wanted because it optimized my time the best. And they called me back and happened to have a weekend slot open. So I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday nights, and then I have Tuesday through Friday to invest in building, this business and invest in people and invest in helping people. So
And I know a lot of people will be like, "Well, that's crazy." You had this, this job that everybody wants, and now you're working weekends. What about the time with the kids? And I would argue, okay, and I mean, you haven't had this conversation, so I want to preface that, but I would argue you're probably spending more time with your kids now, just because of how that schedule is. And yes, it may suck, and you may have to sacrifice, or I'm going to use the term invest here, in yourself and your family a little bit, because you have to work those nights on the weekends. But overall, you got more time.
100%, a lot more time. And let me ask you this. I mean, and I know you're on the computers and things like that, but where do you have to physically be for you to do your job?
For me personally,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, like, I can be anywhere.
So if I'm successful in this venture, what doors does that open for me?
100%.
What windows of opportunities that open for me? But it never happens if I don't take the first step.
And I think that's a lesson a lot of people have to understand, is like, sometimes in life we get comfortable, right? You're comfortable where you're at, whether it's in your job,
I
you
don't
know,
even know if it's comfortable. I'd say complacent.
very good point. Cause like, the argument of are you happy there? Well, I mean, what's the definition of that?
Yeah.
And, that's for me, like, like everybody's like, oh, you work 7 days a week. Yes, I work 7 days a week. I open my app up and I'll probably message people 7 days a week, 100%. You're like, well, what kind of balance is that? Well, the balance is, to a degree, I can make my own schedule, right? Yes, there's times that I have to be on certain calls. There's times that I have to be on certain meetings. Yes, 100%. But there's also times that, like I can get up and I can answer messages early and I can take care of everything, with the people that I serve. And then I can go and be with my family and be at their things, so like this tomorrow, I'll get to go to my wife's home opener, right? Like, went down this past weekend to their openers for the season. Got to watch them walk off home run. You're a baseball fan. Walk off home run, bottom of the seventh, down by two, 3-run home run, girl, for the first win of the season. So like those things there, I think, that is what's important. Not looking at it and being like, oh man, you got to work every weekend. Yeah, but you can also get up and take your kids to school. You also can be there for them. Like there's a lot of pros that come along with that, and the opportunity to help more people with the passion that you're doing. Right. That was cool. And going back to our messages, I was there saying, hey, follow your gut, go do it. And I think the second one, you're like, man, I don't know. I was like, just go. Right. When it lined up and you're like, man, they called me and said that they got something, they didn't have something, but now that I think they want me, it was just like, you got to go. Like that is too many things are coming together.
Well, and that goes back to, what you were talking about earlier. Don't be afraid to ask people for advice, man. You're one of them. We've built a relationship over the years, but I was messaging so many different people, asking advice, asking thoughts, and talk about confirmation. I mean, everybody, people that I was working with were like, dude, you were asking for like a sign, like neon signs are flashing. What are you waiting on? Like, go
Yeah.
do this, Even my boss was like, you have a chance to pursue what you're ultimately passionate about. Like, dude, what are you sitting here talking to me about? He's like, go and let me know when you get it up and running because I need to work on myself.
Yeah. So I think a big takeaway there, and I know your ultimate goal was, to be able to help others, to take this passion that you have and help others, but also I think it created a better quality of life for you. And that would be the first to say I would put out there to people is like, growing up and thinking, okay, you've got your dream job and you're sending in this dream job. And if it is detrimental to your health, it is detrimental to your wellness, think about a change, right? And we're not saying, Brett and I here are not saying, hey, go out and give away a six-figure job to go, to teach yoga. I'm not saying that, right? Or to teach others that it's snowing everywhere right now. So I was thinking be a ski instructor. That was what was going through my mind too. But if that was what makes you happy and it can pay your bills, pull the trigger, go for it, see what
Absolutely.
happens.
Yeah. Well, and I spent, I didn't make the decision overnight. Obviously, like I said, I've been passionate about wanting to do something like this since college,
Yeah.
and so it's like I was asking the question, so how do I make this happen? What would my options be? And and I laid out a game plan and the pieces fell into place for me.
Love it. Couple of questions I got for you here, then we'll just go into some questions. Um, what was probably the biggest takeaway from the nutrition aspect when we started working together? Like, what was one of the things that was just that aha moment where it like clicked, whether it's because you saw results, that were coming from it, or it was just a knowledge like, oh, okay, this makes sense. What was that
Uh,
one or two things that you can remember?
I mean, two big things that I can remember. One, I mean, biggest light bulb was the protein. You know, um, I was nowhere close to where I needed to be, and you remember, I was shocked because I was working out, I was doing all the things, but as soon as I was like, our calories were still high, my meals still weren't perfect, but once I kind of started getting that protein where it needed to be, it was like it melted. I was looking in, I remember I was walking in the backyard in jeans, like my shirt off with an axe because I was chopping some wood or something. I don't know. I live in Arkansas. And I looked in a window and I was like, who's that guy? I mean, just the when I it's just crazy that once I got that protein there and like, it was more the right balance of where I needed to be, or at least close to it just melted. I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than that. And then the second thing is it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I eat a lot of the same things that I ate before. I just learned how to kind of modify and tweak them to make them healthier, make them fit in my diet. So it wasn't like this, I didn't have to go crazy extreme and life altering changes to my diet and never eat anything that I like ever again. I mean, it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. It's just having the knowledge to make the changes I needed to make.
Yeah, and I think that's getting better in the education, when it comes to protein intake. I think for years, everyone was thinking that protein was just needed for like your bodybuilders, right? It was only for, building muscle tissue that you needed protein. But remember, everything that grows on the body from a cellular standpoint, right? Hair, nails, skin, lining of your intestinal tract, lining of your stomach, enzymes, hormones, like everything that grows or is produced requires protein.
Yeah,
And especially if we're in that caloric deficit, that's where your protein needs really go up, right? The more you
right.
exercise, the more you break the body down, the more that's under stress, right? Whether that stress be something medical, whether that stress be mental, you're going to need more protein in there. And, we love the number, 1 gram of protein per target body weight is a starting point. But Brett, and even since I've worked with you, like when I say work with you guys, we still communicate in the app most of the time, but like, it's been probably 2 years. It was like hot and heavy as far as check-ins every single week. Like I've become a little bit more aggressive in increasing protein in reduced caloric states. So if
Yeah.
someone's really, pushing the calories down to drop body weight, I am increasing the protein up, not only to help with hunger, help to, burn more calories through the thermic effect, but also for the simple fact, the more protein in the diet, the higher the calories are. And you
Yeah.
don't create such a big caloric deficit and damage to the resting metabolic rate with a higher protein.
Right. When it's interesting, and though I'm doing it now too, I mean, obviously this is your field, but with the protein being so connected to bodybuilding, there's limits on the benefits there. Like there's actually more benefit in the fat loss journey for the higher protein than in the bodybuilding journey.
Yes. Yes.
So
Right.
it's just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so because you theoretically you don't need as much. It's not going to hurt,
Right.
but what happens a lot of times in the bodybuilding community, when you're working on building muscle tissue, you got to have the extra calories to burn, or sorry, to build the tissue. And if you
Yeah.
consume too much protein, it's going to drive down the hunger. So therefore, those individuals may not get enough total calories. So that's where there's a little bit of a negative light, on consuming too much protein for someone that's trying to gain weight, right? Because
Right.
high protein is going to decrease the hunger big time, right? Both in a reduced caloric state and in fat loss, guys and gals, go extra protein. You are totally fine, from that aspect. Next question I have, and it's one I'm going to do a total separate episode on, but this is something I've got multiple times, and I'm just like, I almost shoot back to like, why is it different, right? But I'll have like this gentleman sent me this morning, and he was like, hey, numbers are good, everything's going. I'm just really struggling eating totally different than my family, and I'm like, time out. Why are we eating totally different from our family?
Yeah.
Right. So first, I think we're both in agreement of this. Like, we shouldn't be eating different than our family eats. Like, we all should be setting down to a primary protein source and some produce as the base of all meals. Then, yes, based on goals of, the spouse, kids, there might be some different stuff that can be prepared for that dinner, but like, it should be the same stuff.
Absolutely, 100%. I think it happens because, especially with kids and stuff, you're busy, so it's easy to heat something up or do this, to feed them for dinner. And then, like my wife, she used to get in the trap of she'd heat them something up real quick, and then she'd just munch on whatever they had because she's helping get them ready for bed and all these things. But with the little preparation stuff like that, again, part of the reason why I'm doing this is to set an example for my family and to be an example for my kids. And so, why would I sit over here and do this and then feed them something completely different, than what I'm eating. No, the point is for all of us to be healthier and to lead healthier lifestyles. So yeah, I mean, 100% agree. We should be sitting down and focusing on getting those primary protein sources, getting greens in our diets and eating well-balanced meals as a family, not just me isolating myself on an island.
Yes. And there might be a few things that are a little bit different. I get that. And that was my
Sure.
response back to him because he was pushing, calories relatively low, and I'm like, hey, like, I get it. Your calories are low, protein is high. I get that it could be different right now, but the base should still be there. If
Yeah.
you're having grilled chicken for dinner, like grilled chicken should be the protein source for everybody.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the kids might, because they're growing and need more calories, they might have more rice or more, maybe mac and cheese, some stuff that you're choosing not to do because you're trying to reduce the calories at that standpoint.
Right. Well, and my wife doesn't need my protein goal.
Yeah. But she still could have, a couple slices of grilled chicken, right? And I'm thinking
Absolutely.
I'm thinking tenders here in my mind. So when I say a couple of slices, right? Like,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, she still needs 3 to 4 ounces, whereas we might be eating 8 to 10 based on our goals.
Right.
But yes, everyone still needs, right? The protein source. So that's where
Absolutely.
I'm starting to notice this, and maybe I'm just more aware of it when I'm talking to people. When I see this come up, I'm like, no, time out. Like, we should be eating the same, because if not, it's going to set that individual up, just like we're talking about with your friend wanting to do keto. Okay, what happens when you reach a goal? I mean, when
Yeah.
that individual reaches his goal, do you think he's going to go back and continue to eat like he is, or you think he's going to go back to eat like his family?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and it goes back to, what you said earlier too, when we're talking about like culture and the people you're surrounded by. I mean, you doing something completely different in your family is setting you up for failure all the way around the board. But when you surround yourselves with like-minded individuals and you build that culture of eating a healthy lifestyle, of having certain, components at each and every single meal, then you're setting yourself up for success.
Let's talk about results. I don't remember them offhand. I'm trying to pull up your Instagram, but it's been so long since we've posted. Me and you have posted your before and after. I don't think either. I can't find it on mine scrolling back, and I couldn't find it on yours. Do you remember, like, because I don't think we tested body fat percentage.
We did, but I don't remember what the body fat percentage is. I'd have to go back and find it. I don't remember what it started off at. I just sent it to your podcast Instagram, the one that I share all the time.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
what's fun?
I've got this one, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it on the camera. For
Yeah,
those that are watching, it's probably a little bit out of focus, but
this
that was
one.
the one that come up. It's just an awesome photo because a it it's just something about, like, I don't want to say filters, not the word I'm looking for, angles, right? Because you're cutting grass, so you're bent over, so it's a bad
Yeah,
angle to start with, right?
it is.
And if you were standing up straight, like, it wouldn't, you've been like, okay, it's not that bad, but it's just the angle of it, really highlights where you're carrying your excess weight at that photo.
One,
Um,
it's funny because looking back on it, I kind of regret this. But if I'm honest with you, I lied on the very first assessment. Like 100% lied because I was embarrassed at where I was at. I think I put on the first assessment that I was like 225 when I was actually like 235. And I put on there that I can, well, when I took the pictures, I'm sucking in as hard as I possibly can. Like my shorts are kind
Big,
of hiked up a little bit because I'm
you
embarrassed
cost
at where
us a
I am when I'm
win.
looking at the mirror. I know. Looking back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that probably, I mean, made a huge difference in the results. Um, but I do remember by the end of it, and the only reason I did this was because of you telling me I had a chance. But by the end of it, I was at 5%.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, and listen, it's hard to win, a transformation challenge with First Form. There's so many people enter it, and there's so many people who have really good results.
Yeah.
I always say, like, we've been blessed in our team to win, plenty of times, but also remember the ones where I thought we had the win, and we just didn't get it. And you were one of them. And it happens, right? Like, and I remember, your love handles. That's always when you get decent lean individuals, right? And you see people trying to game it sometimes in their progress photos, which is really frustrating because it's like, hey, I've been around for a while. Like, if you're slumped over, you can tell, but you can't hide the love handles, right? So if someone's back photo, like, the love handles are pretty lean, and then their front, they're like really gaming it. You can tell. But
Especially from the back, because you like those are such awkward pictures because I can't see what I'm taking a
yeah,
picture of. I'm like,
you
what do I
can't
do with my arms? Do I
you
flex?
can't game the
Whatever.
back photos,
You
but it's all.
can't.
But I just remember like you got super lean, and then after that, what was also good to see is you rebounded really well by gaining some muscle tissue, and to this day you maintain close to probably single digit body fat, through your journey. Not perfect on our diet. You don't track every day. I think that's important for people to understand. Is like, yeah, you tracked during your transformation, but you don't track every day now. Went through some um man, I hate to say struggles, some obstacles in life, right? Past few months, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like our lives mirrored each other a lot in obstacles with fathers and having third babies and that type of stuff. So, just a big congrats to you, man, for living life and living a healthy life, setting yourself up for success as you move forward from a fitness and health standpoint.
Yeah, well, and I think it's just important to note that even though I don't track daily, my habits remain the same for the most part. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm still preparing my meals, I'm still eating them, but now I know where I need to be because I tracked it for so long on a daily basis that I have a pretty good idea. Well, if I eat this for lunch, then this is what I kind of need to do for breakfast and dinner. But no, it's created a lot of flexibility too, where like I no longer feel guilty going out to eat with my mom for her birthday or something like that, where, sometimes I kind of struggle with some of those type things. I don't feel guilty about it anymore because I'm able to do that because of the lifestyle changes that I've made.
And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about the lens, right? Because
Yeah.
even though, when people start their journey, when you haven't maintained, like there's that fear of being able to go and have something like that. But once you have quote had something that's off the plan and then you're able to get right back on the plan, once you do that multiple times, there's no fear in it, right?
And I
Like,
think
cool.
you remember this. I was scared to death to raise calories after the challenge. I was like, man, look at
100%.
the results
Well,
that I've got. Like, you want me to eat more?
yeah.
What?
Well, and so I've changed it up a little bit, right? Because about that time period when I was working with you, like I saw that people were really struggling to add the 10% calories, back in and overall. So what I've actually started doing is adding in the carbohydrate on leg days. So taking people, even now, even started doing this in their journey, right? So if someone's already getting kind of lean and we still got a few more weeks in the challenge to go, I'll give them, a couple hundred extra carbs on leg day, and they see the difference in their strength and their energy on that day, and they keep losing body fat. And they're like, oh, so that was something I've learned is that I now don't do it based on just, okay, let's increase total calories. What I do is I start giving fuel around training, and then we just slowly work it up. And there's no right or wrong, but what I've learned is just what you're talking about on the psychological standpoint, the mental standpoint. It works better for people because the fear is not there. They can see it when they're tracking. Oh, I had 250, 300 carbs twice this week, and I still lost a half a pound of body fat.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. One, I mean, that's part of the tracking for me. Man, I like on my training days, I eat. And if I don't, I'm starving. Now, part of that's because of what I'm doing and what I'm training for and everything else, but I eat far more calories than I realized was possible because of, the activity levels and because of the things that I'm doing. And then I look in the mirror and it's like I dropped another 2 pounds. You know what I mean? So,
And I think, there's times in our life that tracking is very important. One is on your journey. And for some people, it's just, I can't put a timestamp on this because some people's journeys take longer, right? So
sure.
some people may need to track for 6 months or a year, right, to just reach their goal. But then you need to track into that maintenance period, and then once those habits are instilled and the rebounds are able to happen without thinking about it, right? So you go on a cruise for 3 days, you have what you want to, you still worked out, you still made some good choices, but you had what you want to from a nutrition standpoint, but you can get right back on track. Something, items like that. That's when you don't have to track anymore. And then you can just pull out the tracking every now and again if you need it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I've kind of maintained this 210 to 220. I had the DEXA scan done the other day, 16% body fat. Could I be a little bit leaner? Yeah, I could, but also like for my size and my abilities, like I'm happy with that percentage. Right.
Sure.
And, I haven't tracked like other than 3 or 4 weeks periods, man, in a couple years. And it's nice, when you get to that standpoint.
It is, and yeah, and I do it just because, even once I'm rebounding and once I've built these habits, it's still easy to like kind of get sidetracked a little bit and just get off by a little bit, And so just touching back in base for, a week or so here and there to make sure that, I'm still on track and still hitting the goals that I need to do, really makes a big difference in terms of staying there, I guess. And of course, I've started tracking a little bit more recently because of that training aspect, because I am increasing the calories. And so I'm tweaking my meals again, like if I'm doing chicken, rice, and beans, I'm putting a little bit more rice and beans because I need those carbs. And so I'm tracking to help me figure out, okay, where is this line of where I need to be able to maintain to where my training regimen is not completely, shredding me up again, which is not the goal, but I'm also not over consuming and going the wrong direction either.
All right, quick 2 questions. 1, where can people find you on Instagram? What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it is inspired.fitness.life.
Second question. I'm only gonna let you do one thing here. What is one tip that you would tell someone that is maybe contemplating starting their journey? So maybe someone's listened to that episode today for the very first time. What is one tip that you could give them just in the wellness space? Anything you want.
One tip. Man, that's hard. Man, I did a video on this the other day, and I'm gonna go back to it. Just show up. I mean, not every day is going to be the same. Not every day is going to be perfect, but try to show up each and every single day with whatever the habits it is that you're trying to build. Just show up. Again, like if you're trying to build reading habits, like one day might be 1 page, one day might be 10 pages. If you're trying to eat healthier, you might, have a slip here and there. If you're trying to work out, some days I work out for 15 minutes. Some days I work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like every day is a little bit different, but show up each and every single day to the best of your ability.
Build a baseline, whether it's perfect or whether it's not. I always like to say we're a work in progress. We're shooting for perfection, but rarely do we hit a perfect day, right?
Yeah,
But it's progress over perfection. So
100%.
I appreciate it, brother. I'm going to have you back on as we read through spiritual readiness here in the future. But man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing in the wellness space. Hopefully we can share some of your progress photos when we get these shorts out, just to kind of show and put that picture with your, or people can visualize and see the results that you've had. So appreciate you, man. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, man. Again, honored and blessed to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome, guys. Listeners, hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.